Hello, this is Team 3749A's Tower Takeover Robot explanation. And, you can see it. Here's the robot. I guess we'll start off with the intakes since they're right in front of us. So, they're just normal, double-chained intakes for redundancy. We have a spacer right here that the chain runs across that added tension to the intake and helped us intake cubes before state. We added it like right before state, and it really helped with compression. One thing it did hurt though was that when the arms were down, when the arms were down, it would have a good chance the flaps would, rubbing up against the wall, which made it hard to get into stacking position. But it wasn't all that bad. It wasn't a huge problem. The arms on the robot are angled inwards. That was just a quick fix we did to increase compression on the cubes because the intakes were initially too far apart to put good compression on the cubes to intake them. It's only a 3-stage. We would have gone with like 4 stages by Worlds, but since Worlds never happened, we never got to that. The whole intake system is jointed off of a screw joint right here. The screw starts down here, and the spacers right in there, and just rotates off there. All of our motors are quick swap with these small zip ties. We didn't have any huge problems with them just being these small zip ties, but the motors did. One of the intake motors did pop out in one of our in our last elimination match before we were kicked out of the bracket. So before we lost a match in the elimination bracket. So here's the drive. It's a 7:5 ratio on the wheels. There's a 60 tooth right there. The wheels are bolted into the gear, so there's very low slop across this whole system. So yeah. There's just a 36 tooth idler right there on a screw joint with, just a screw joint. The anti-tips, I guess that's next. Just pretty simple stuff. There's a little bracket down here to hold the other side, so they're pretty solid, really. And it goes up under this C channel right here, so it can't go up at all. And just for the axle, the screw that the wheel spins on, the screw starts all the way over here and it has a spacer right here, so it gets support from this whole width of the C channel, and the wheel is really supported like this. Well, yeah, it's pretty well supported right there. Enough to hold the robot during matches. The bands right here that usually go on the anti-tips, they're off now, but it would start like this with the bands all the way around, and then as soon as you move the robot, they come back and fit into place. Radio. Here, the tilter. Let me just rotate it back around real quick. Wonderful camera work right here. The tilter is rather simple. If I could just, it's hard to move this whole thing because there's so many joints and stuff that get in the way of each other. But anyway, the tilter, just a small 2-segment C-channel, then a screw joint at the top with shaft collars and standoffs for the next section of the tilter. And then they're just jointed right in here inside the C-channel. And that got us a really good geometry for stacking. We never had an issue with not having enough torque to push up a stack. Here's a potentiometer for the tilter. And we have the same type of setup for the arm as well, where you just have a half-cut C-channel standoffed into whatever it's rotating, and that worked really well. And for the little joint right here with the axle, there's not another collar inside of here. There's actually a screw for this to rotate off of. So the only collar for the axle is right here, and the screw for it just fits underneath inside the half-cut hole right here, and that worked really well. And we also have a little low-strength lock bar right here to make sure that this stayed pretty accurate. The same thing for over on the tilter. The arms are supported really entirely off of these 2 C-channels. There's also this, but that doesn't really give the arm support. All of it's really coming from here. And they're at different heights, but you only have this 1.5 inches of space where they're mating with the top C-channel. There isn't a triangle brace or anything in here. And that is actually really solid. Like, little insider secret, this robot fell off a table and we had virtually no problems with the arms at all getting out of alignment. And it hit like right on the intakes here and bent the screw for them. It was kind of annoying to replace. This is where our arms rested on. There's little felt foam pads right here that just meet against the C-channel coupler. Our arms, there's no bracing for these top arms right here. That's partly why we had to have them angled in. Well, not really, but there's no bracing between this C-channel and this C-channel. It all comes from this box right here, and what the bracing between these 2 C-channels right here. Well, and this one right here to keep these C-channels in line. So this, I wish I could put the tray down right now, but that takes a while. And I don't want to do it. But all we have for here is just the C-channel boxed in side of the side C-channels right here, and a standoff, and that kept we just need to make sure that these screws are tightened on the standoff between each match, but that kept really good compression on the arms, and we never really had a compression problem all throughout the time we used this robot during matches or anything. So this whole thing worked really well. This box especially held up really well to anything that was going on up here. Any twisting or anything. So yeah, the tray joints really simple. They're both like this. This plate is mounted on the middle holes of the C-channel, so you can get the rotation point really close to the inside of the C-channel, and they mate they meet really nice together. And this L channel folds up inside of the next stage, so in order to fit this C channel in when it was fully folded up, because otherwise nothing would be able to fit in here when it was folded up, and we couldn't have it bracing at the top. The C channels just meet with the spacers on this standoff and the screws with Kep's nuts on them right here, and that kept this top part really straight for the entire time we used this robot. I guess put the tray down. The joint right here, the lower tray joint, it's the same type of deal, it's just a little bit higher than the last one. There's a lot. The only real problems we ever had with this robot were the place where this tray joint meets up with this C channel. You see that bending right there? That was initially before we had a macro for this, for the tray and the arms, because we had to use this robot like a day after we built it. So if we mispressed a button, it would hit up against this C channel and bend it, which is kind of stinks. But so we had to space out screws and everything in here in order to be able to fit that C channel in. Ideally, these two C channels would be wider, like farther apart, and then we just like put a C channel inside of here to space the intakes off of, but we didn't do that. The place where these two stages meet is pretty far from the rotation point, so it isn't the greatest, and we had to have it far from the rotation point because it was C channels right here, and we weren't going to cut it down because we were really low on C channels at the time in our organization, and we just didn't really need to cut the C channels. Ideally we should have, to keep this meeting point lower, because you can't really tell on camera, but the channel right here is bent a little bit because of where the tray would come back and snap back, and all that inertia would bend the L channel right here. So not the greatest, but yeah, that's really all there is, I guess. Just the tray joint right here, really simple. A C channel coupler on the inside of a C channel. Screw all the way through, and then it ends right here with a lock nut inside, and there's a bearing block right on here. So this is really solid tray joint, although there might have been some rounding out in one of these holes. Made it wiggle a little bit, but it's not all that bad. It's pretty good, all things considered. So yeah, that was our tower takeover robot. I know it isn't anything on the level of 7700R and 214X, but this was the first complex tray robot we built the entire season. Before then, we just had a simple tray, and we were looking for a state spot. Kind of got unlucky with elimination matches and stuff. We consistently ranked like top third in the tournament, but not be able to squeeze out the state spot. So if we did get the state spot, we would have rebuilt immediately and potentially rebuilt again, but we didn't have time towards the later part of the season to do a third rebuild. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Bye.